afternoon, hallo, hallo, Wien. Ich freue mich wirklich hier zu sein. Wien ist eine ganz besondere Stadt. Ich bin in Deutschland aufgewachsen, habe viel Zeit in Wien verbracht, bin aber seit den letzten paar Jahren in New York und Seattle zugange. Aber es ist wirklich schön, bis auf die Hofburg sogar zurück eingeladen zu werden. Also ich freue mich sehr. We will continue the remainder of the talk in English, though. Sorry for those who were hoping for a German presentation. This will be in English. It was actually pretty tricky when Jürgen came to me and said, George, you guys make an amazing app called Paper. It's installed by millions of people across the world. We're about 5–10% of all iPads. Can you teach people how to build a successful app company in 35 minutes? Oh, and also do something practical, too. So I said, let's give it a try. Usually when I approach a new problem, what I do is I mind map. Right? So in this particular case, the challenge is, well, what does the pioneer audience really want? We got some good requests from Jürgen. The first one is he wants us to teach how to launch a successful app company. The answer to this is you got to find some awesome founders, right? And so we're going to teach you how to find great founders and what is the process of getting there. The next one is you want to learn something practical. Well, that's no problem. There's lots of things to cover, right? But I always like showing what we're doing. So I'm going to teach mind mapping. You come to conferences to learn something new, right? That's a big area. For us today, as a world first, we're announcing actually our new collaboration service, Mix, is going to be publicly available. And then Mix is actually really dear to our heart, right? I want to talk a little bit about why it matters, why creativity matters, and what is the cultural change we want to create by making creativity more accessible. That's the outline, right? We'll talk about people, we'll teach something, and we'll talk about culture, how it all evolves. So first, this is sort of my formula for how to get started with a new project. It really all begins with people and the team. Fiftythree was founded by 4 co-founders, John Harris, Andrew Allen, myself, and Julian Walker. 2 designers and 2 engineers by choice. It's a very diverse team. We wanted a culture in which designers and engineers can work close together. We found each other working at Microsoft. By the way, for those who think you have to launch your first successful company by 18 or 19, that's not true. You can go work for a company like Microsoft, spend their 10 years learning on their dime, find an awesome team, and then start your company. That also works. That's what we did. There's nothing wrong with that. The most important thing is when you build your team is that you love working with them, that there's inherent joy working with them. Because if you do, well, you can't lose, right? I mean, even if your project fails, you just so enjoy working with them that there's only upside. The second thing is your approach, right? You really want to develop a unique approach of working. For us, it meant building, how do you build brand-based technology companies? That's something we honed over 7 years at Microsoft, launching new brands, working across hardware and software. So we knew we would get things done, right? That we'd be very efficient, that we could do this. And the question you want to ask yourself, what is really our secret? Well, our secret is we know how to build brands, we know how to work across hardware and software better than anyone else, we think, and we've demonstrated it, so we knew that. And the last thing is, by the way, with those 2 things, with team and approach, you already have a company. You pretty much have a good company, right, to keep and to do great things. The last thing, though, is then, what is it you're going to really do and focus on? And that's where passion comes into play. What are the values that you're pursuing? What is it that's really going to get you up in the morning? And it's not something, even if you have to do it for the rest of your life, that you're going to be really happy with it. And that's sort of where the values come into play. For us, we love the creative process. We think technology is there to serve the human need to create. We want to build and make creativity more accessible. So for us, it really begins by understanding what is the creative process, right? It's this mystical thing for most, but we've wrapped it into a diagram, and this is sort of the creative process the way we see it, right? It starts out in this fairly amorphous thing, right? This phase over here is where creativity begins. And then it shifts into productivity mode. The world of productivity we're very well familiar with. You've got tools like PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Photoshop, right? Computers have been really, really historically good at the productivity side. The entire world there is very goal-oriented, but that's not how the creative process works. When ideas get developed, it's more of a search. It's you're feeling a way through something unusual, something new, and you're combining it with something that's familiar, and you're combining it with something new. The best tools of the trade, and that's one of the things that we actually found, was then when we were developing new products, we always started with paper and pencil. Right? And it isn't because we're Luddites or we love the feel of paper. It is because it allowed us a sense of freedom. It allows us a sense of expressiveness that most technical tools didn't allow for. So the creative process became the underpinning of our roadmap, and we wanted to be about here, where paper and pencil live. So I kid you not, this is how we do roadmap planning at 53. We look at the creative process, we look at the different phases in it, we identify a new area, a new challenge, and build products towards it. To demonstrate like how Pencil works, so Pencil is our hardware product that goes along with our iPad application Paper. We'll play a really quick video so you get a feeling for how this works. If our team could play the video, please. We did design it more for YouTube size and not for the large screen, so the heavy shaking, it works better on the small screen, but this is pretty, I love this video. When you look at now the different tools in Paper, and this is kind of where we're going to shift now into more the workshop mode. Each tool has a specific purpose, right? We organized our tool palette here into the activities of draw, sketch, outline, write, and color. So the draw tool itself is really about creating very expressive lines, right? And it has a very calligraphic quality. The sketch tool itself, like if I just use the tip of pencil, I can draw fine lines, and as I angle over, you can shade. So a pencil in our world can turn into a Conté crayon in one continuous motion as you angled over. Outline tool is similar, it has like very thick, fat lines. The write tool is good for text. And then there is our color tool, which people really enjoy. Actually, let's use some real color here. The color tool is reminiscent of watercolor, so it's something where you can actually just go ahead and paint on screen. That was actually a big breakthrough for me personally, because I've never been able to draw with watercolor. It always ended up being a brown puddle. But along with Andrew and Julian, we managed to architect a system where even someone like me can use watercolor now, so that's been a huge joy. And when you put it all together, it means that you can take a quick pencil sketch, you go in, you shade rapidly, draw out some outlines, add in color, and you've created an impression of a building. Different people will develop different styles. Here's actually an illustration by a creator called Saxo Beat. So he uses the same tools to give a very different visual language to a simple expression of a tree. Or here's like an illustration by a UK artist called Ellis Nadler, where he just draws different characters, right? And I just like how the personality comes out. And just about now, right, when we talk about paper and pencil, there's a very common reaction that people have when they see our product, and it's this. People's shoulders will slump and they say, I'm not creative. Like, you're showing us all these interesting tools, these interactions, this is all lovely, but I'm not creative. And it's one of the most depressing things to hear, because here we are, we're building these products, we're all hopeful, and we're up against a cultural problem. People think they're not creative, and that's just not the case. We're humans. We have massive brain, we have two hands, we can use them, and it turns out when people say, I'm not creative, it's really shorthand for I don't know how to draw, or I don't know how to think through a problem in a visual form. And that's something like when you look at it, I mean, there's no surprise. I mean, in schools today, we don't really teach people how to draw. We really don't teach collaboration skills. We really don't teach visual facilitation. We don't do any of that. So of course most people think they're not creative, but we can change that. And there's a very, very, very couple basic steps people can take to do this. And I'm going to share one of my favorite creative techniques, and it's called mind mapping. Has anyone actually done mind mapping? Has anyone in this audience practiced mind mapping? OK, this is good. We are about at 25% of the room. By the end of this talk, we'll be at 100%. So it's a super simple process. It's a really, really super simple process. This is the anatomy of it. Like, you start at the base of the center of the page, and you formulate a core question. That's the first step. You got to think a bit about what is it you're going to be brainstorming and mind mapping about. You then start developing ideas in a clockwise motion around the core idea. And as you're developing your thoughts, you're expanding towards the edges of the page. That captures that I mentioned of depth. And then as you travel around the circle, right, you're tracking time. And once you're done, you're able then to use color to provide emphasis on a mind map. So what you're doing there is, in one device, you're using the center of the page to focus your thinking. You're using the edges of the page to track the depth of your thinking, and you're keeping your history of time as your thought process evolves. It's extremely powerful, right? So you have like all these temporal and spatial cues now to remember your thoughts, see what ground you covered. So let's go back to my original mind map, and let's decode it a bit, right? Because this looks a little bit overwhelming, but it's actually easy to read once you know sort of the anatomy behind it. When you go to the center, right, what's the core question? What is the pioneer audience interested in? I could have written this a number of ways. I could have said is like, hey, what's 53 going to sell today? Or I could have written, what do I want to talk about? Or how will I make Jürgen happy? Or how will I impress my parents? There are all these different things that I could have written here. But so think about that core question, right? You don't want it to be too descriptive, such as, what's 2 + 2, right? That's a somewhat lame question to ask, because there is a definite answer. But you also don't want to be too vague and just use one word, like, peace, right? That would be too broad, even though that would be a nice brainstorm to do. Next, as you can see, as you go towards the edges, right? When you take, say, finding founders, right? That very quickly will lead into hiring, all the way into training and appreciation, right? So these are more nuanced thoughts towards the end, because you're really driving depth into the development. Using illustrations, even if they're little scraggly illustrations like that, or like this heart here, it really breaks up the page and helps you then anchor your idea. And then as the last step, you use then lines and color to really highlight your findings. Here's another example. This is actually a talk, sort of a talk that I sketched 3 years ago. Gary Hamel is a professor of management, and now as I'm reading this diagram, I actually can reconstruct his talk. For me, the key takeaway was, in the new management models that are evolving right now, how much control is really needed when you have an organization and email where you can easily share information, right? That was sort of my key takeaway. And mind map doesn't have to be very elaborate, right? This was under 2 minutes. I sketched this during the Apple announcement most recently in Cupertino, where they introduced Apple Pay. And even in this quick, for me, like the big takeaway from that was actually how Apple is really emphasizing now the role of privacy, right? And it was actually very interesting when Tim Cook announced that, like most payment models, are business models of self-interest and not focused on the user, and then started emphasizing security and privacy. At that moment, I knew they're going to go up against Amazon. I know he didn't speak about Amazon. There was no mention of Amazon, but this was one of my findings, hearing him talk about this, and then retracing sort of the steps of how they set up the story and shared about this, because Amazon takes a lot of advantage of being able to know your complete customer history. You can evolve the style. This is one where it's a mind mapping style where it's more of a dialogue. So I just actually drew 2 people. Questions are on the right-hand side, answers on the left. Or in particular for panel discussions, which sometimes are somewhat harder to track, right? Because so many people are saying so many different things, where you actually use then the spatial layout, where the center statement in this case is actually where people are sitting and what their positions are, and you can outline that. People's style evolved. This is an illustration by a distinguished educator called Brad Orwell. So he later on takes in a mind map and then really cleans it up into diagrams. And I really like this particular style where he captures an entire session at TED with different people and their main speaking points. If you want to learn more about like visual thinking, like there's some terrific resources. Suni Brown has a great book where she describes the visual alphabet, a base set of characters that allow you to develop new notations. And this is a very, very useful technique of how to draw people. I mean, there are tons of resources to then build up. It really just starts by taking the first step, right? And taking a simple technique, embracing it, and going for it. So we drew our first roadmap. We launched paper, we launched pencil, and now we find ourselves in a position where we're up against this cultural challenge of really getting everyone involved to give their creativity a try and to work together. And for us, we then realized is that tablets have given us so much technology. Pencil is now making tablets so useful. But what about the web? What about the connectivity we have in our daily lives? And we saw a huge opportunity to really look at the web as it exists today and take the connectivity of our devices and make creation collaborative, right? Sometimes some of the hardest things of getting started with your creativity is finding a good starting point or finding people to create with. And we decided to design a service specifically to address this problem of getting started with your creativity and working off each other's ideas. We call the service Mix, and we'll play another short video to see how we introduce the idea of Mix to the world. And take a good look at the circle on the screen, because you'll see it again. So for us, this video was an announcement to the world that it's almost a call to action. Let's find out how can we really create together. And that circle that you saw there was like one of the first things we shared on Mix. And within our community, it ended up getting remixed over and over time. Actually, now we're up to like 2,000 different versions of that circle, right? So when you see a simple circle, like think again, like all the different expressions that you can do with a circle. I mean, it's just really. It's amazing how the human mind can develop new forms of a circle. Mix lives right above your journals, your private journals in paper. It lives in the cloud. And Mix is a set of open pages, right? In the middle, there is a sequence of people that I follow and ideas that I follow. Right now, actually, we have like a collaborative. We're collaboratively like live sketching all of Pioneers Conference, so you can see just a number of like sketches there, some of the talks. There are a ton of templates that you can like find. This is actually one of my favorite templates about sort of like that combines like a funnel diagram with like a chevron diagram. People have sketched different bag designs, right? It all started out with a basic template. I mean, people can just pick up with a single go what they see there. So if you just tap on illustration, you can like quickly open up the page, like add a quick call out here, right? Once you pinch back out, it's ready to be shared. So it's really one of those things where it's almost like we put little antennas on each page to connect like the world and their different ideas. Mix launched 6 weeks ago. It was in private beta. Starting today, it's going to be publicly available to all. And it's one of the few places where you really can see how beautiful the human mind is. Within the first week, even in our public beta, we had remixes occur in over 193 countries. It's truly a global phenomenon. Like, I mean, it shows, like, when you go to like our learning category, one of the most common things people are creating right now there are different ways of explaining languages to people. So this was actually a quick sketch where someone drew different colors on the page in a blank line, and over 122 people since then have added different languages and helped people understand how to say color names in their language. You can do things like learn Korean in one page, right here. Right? So someone helped break down the Korean alphabet and then developed a creative prompt for you to even give it a try. And it's starting to raise some really important questions, such as how do you really create a page that invites then others to create? So teachers right now are developing new assignments where they're trying to open up possibilities for students to fill in the blank. You're seeing artists develop new compositions where they're trying to invite in other artists to create and collaborate with them. You're seeing a ton of UI designers pick up templates. Actually, let me pull that one up. There's when the Apple Watch. Their shoe designers, fashion designers are on Mix. A lot of technical work. So there are over 357 different watch designs now for the Apple Watch. It's a really, really terrific place, and it's a phenomenal. It's just incredible to see, right, when you really let the human mind come together and work together, what they can do. So with the launch of Mix, going back to one of my founders, I so enjoy working with them, and their conviction really inspires me every day. One of the first things that Andrew Allen posted was, this credo, right? His belief. He's actually an incredible designer, an artist, right? But, for him, the reason why he goes to work every day is, and I strongly believe this, that he feels that we can make creativity more accessible. So he writes that, you don't have to be an artist to be creative. You don't have to be a genius to have a great idea. You don't have to be an inventor to create something new, right? You just have to believe that you can. And that's kind of the key thing with creativity, right? You don't know what's inside of you until you give it a try. And my favorite response was once he posted that to Mix, the community responded instantly, right? It was just simple and just cleaned it up, just in a simple statement of that you can, right? And if there's anything that you're taking away from this talk, please know that there are very simple techniques for you to get started with your creativity, right? There's mind mapping is extremely powerful one. Visual communication is a core skill that will help us think better, work better together, and really elevate the level of discourse. But the other thing is, and this is a more fundamental one, it's with the creativity you have, it's one of those things that you really don't know what it's capable of until you really give it a try. So with that, thank you so much for your time, and remember, you can.
Thank you for your awesome presentation of that app. I understand it's more or less like an iPad app right now. What about the other platforms? Thanks.
Yeah. So for us right now, we put all the building blocks in place right now with paper, pencil, and Mix, right? And now it's time for us, as we're looking at our roadmap, we're looking at other platforms, other device sizes, right? So we're currently in the process of planning our next work. So other platforms are going to receive more consideration for sure.
Can one mark one's remixes with the Creative Commons license, or is it standard, or how's the copyright situation?
Thank you for that question. So, when you think about what Mix is, right, you have to think about what it is not, right? It's not a place where you're working by yourself. It's not a place where you're told to not copy someone else's work, right? And it's fundamentally a place where people are collaborating. We've thought a lot about the licensing situation for a service that's fundamentally built around creation and collaboration. And the only real answer we found was that it has to be universal Creative Commons. Like anything that is shared, there is part of the public domain. We invested about, when you join Mix, you'll see our terms of service, and they specifically call out that this is universal Creative Commons, right? It needs to be that way because the idea here is it's a place where people can freely work together and create together.
Do you only have the white background for normal paper? Because I do a lot of sketches to do my products that I can copy it then into AutoCAD. But do you have these lines also available, or just the white background?
So one is you can actually take like a color if you wanted to drop in colors, so you can choose different background colors. Pages are transparent if you want to have transparent pages. And then you can go to Mix and find a ton of templates here. I mean, I know there's probably, I mean, here this is not lined paper, but it's like you'll find tons of templates on Mix for that.
I've been using this application for a few months. I feel frustrated because of the I mean, I use the free version. So I have access to the Mix, but not all the tools which are presenting, which just really, really look great. The problem is the size of the page. I mean, the dimensions is for a Moleskine, but when I see the drawings that you show, you need really a sharp pen to use the Moleskine size. So would you plan to have a big size and also a different quality of paper?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's right now, I mean, the page itself, I mean, it is a fixed size. I mean, you have the ability to zoom into the page with a loop for more details, right? And then in terms of different qualities, I mean, we're constantly investing in our tools, right? You'll see us investing and developing more and more tools that will then create different qualities of drawing experiences.
This is a really nice app. Thank you. Did you ever do you plan to make an export function so that I can have tasks in Trello or something like this?
Yeah. Yeah, so there are export capabilities in Paper now, right? So you can share to Mix, you can send to like sharing services or to the photo roll. You can make your own books. Like the level of integration with Trello, I mean, you certainly could. I'm not sure. Through app extensions, I haven't tried the integration with Trello, but I know we work with any app that receives images, you can send images to, so on iPad. So it's a very flexible way of doing that.
All right, can you take maybe questions from Slido? How long did it take you to get the pencil right? What about resolution of the final image? How scalable is it?
Yeah. So Pencil, we had about 5 hardware architectures that we were exploring in parallel. It took us 2.5 years to develop that, and Pencil was sort of the winning design. So it was a 2.5-year development process. In terms of the resolution in Paper, images are Retina resolution on iPad, so it's 2048, I think, by 1536.
Okay, then the next question, what's the next step? Copy-paste tool, use photos, background to sketch on top?
These are all on the roadmap. These are great suggestions. There's so much more to do, correct.
Okay. Is there an ergonomic reason for the 53 pen to be so big?
It's, I mean, Pencil is the reason we shape Pencil like a carpenter's pencil is because we really, when we started designing Pencil, we were thinking, this was starting 2011, right? We were thinking about what's really drawing going to be like in 3 to 5 years. And for us, we could have designed like a ballpoint pen, or we could have designed like a paintbrush, right? Ballpoint pen, very functional. Paintbrush, very expressive. But for us, the carpenter pencil in this shape opened up an expressive dimension where you can use the tip and the sides to shade and to draw. You have the back of the eraser, right, where you can use the edges to do fine erasing and wide erasing. So you needed some heft. It also accommodates like the battery really easily on the inside. So there are a lot of design reasons why it led us to this. And the other one is, I mean, it snaps on the iPad case and doesn't roll away, so it's also super functional. We like this shape a lot.
Okay, great. Unless there are like direct questions from the audience who want to use the mic, let's get to the next one, which is which books, sources, or blogs can you recommend to learn those basic and easy techniques?
I think there's Mike Rhodes has a really terrific book on sketchnoting right now out. That's a new book. So I think that's a really great starting point. And the other thing, and then there's like one of my favorite creators on Mix right now, his blog is called Made Mistakes, and he's got like some amazing tutorials on Paper, and they really break down like visual techniques and how to sketch. I would say like a book like Mike Rhodes' sketchnoting is very good, but I would say nothing really beats practicing and just getting started and not being disappointed that you didn't create a masterpiece, and also knowing that that's not the point. The point is getting an idea across, right? Don't sit down on the piano and expect to play the sonata. Like, play, just start playing, right? And that's the same with drawing, like just get started.
Okay, then another question from Slido. What about my palm touching a display when using the pencil?
Yeah. So the question here is like, with most touch displays, what happens is you can actually, when you put the side of your hand on the screen, it's indistinguishable from touch usually. But with pencil, there's specific electronics in pencil that allows us to distinguish between what's a finger, what's a palm, what's writing, what's drawing, so you can comfortably draw and write. It works for left-handed, right-handed people. You can draw upside down, rotate the iPad around. It works really well. It's why it takes 2.5 years to build this product.
Okay. So there's an interesting question here, which is, can you implement your product into other enterprises' business models? For example, design your own T-shirt.
You could. I mean, everything that's shared to Mix is part of the Creative Commons, or actually the public domain. So you could conceivably move T-shirt and make T-shirt designs of what you find on Mix. I mean, what we ask people is to provide attribution at that point. I mean, do the right thing and provide attribution to people.
All right. Any questions from the audience the traditional way?
My question's on the screen, but I just thought I'd ask anyway. Is your vision to try and replace paper in the workplace, or do you see like your tools becoming productivity tools for offices and workplaces and, as a digitization force?
Yeah, so we believe that a sophisticated society has multiple means of communicating their ideas and recording their ideas, right? Just like there's a good wine glass, there's a good shot glass, there's a beer glass, right? I mean, it's not one cup to rule them all, and it's not. We don't believe in a theory of replacement. We believe in a theory of making more use of the human mind, right? Which means, like, we're going to build tools that allow you to express your ideas more easily, right? And paper is a good namesake, right? We're playing on the world. Paper is going to, physical paper is going to exist. It has its place, right? But what we really want to do is take all the advances in technology that are happening. I mean, keep in mind, when we launched in 2012, there weren't any creative productivity apps that were broadly used on iPad. Most people were doing, Angry Birds and Twitter and Facebook, and I don't know what they were doing. But we were like, look, let's use this technology to further the human mind. Let's really make creativity more accessible. So that's really that's our trajectory. That's what we were interested in.
I love it, but I don't have an iPad. What to do?
Kickstarter. I don't know. Christmas is coming. Make friends. Say it again.
The web. So
oh, that's right. That's right. And if if you have a computer, you can go online and see Mix and at least participate in others' people creation by seeing it there. Thank you.